we're live.
Oh, Richard.
Good evening and welcome to Commissioner Marvin Arrington's Summer 25 District Dialogue Series. My name is Richard D. Case in Commissioner Arrington's office. I want to welcome you today. Commissioner Arrington serves on the Fulton County Board of Commissioners office and represents Fulton County's District 5. Those areas include parts of Atlanta, parts of East Point, College Park, Union City, Fairburn, City of South Fulton, Palmetto, Chattahoochee Hills. Today's dialogue is going to focus on tax assessments, and here to lead us in that discussion is none other than Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. Commissioner?
All right. Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone. Marvin Arrington Jr. So glad that you could join us tonight for this town hall. We host these every year for the last 11 years to basically help people understand the process, right? Because we want everyone to pay their fair share of taxes and no more. And so typically every right before April, we will host a tax hall, a tax exemptions town hall to make people aware of all of the exemptions that are available for them. And then every uh, July, we come back and talk about tax assessments because now everyone should have received their property tax assessments. They should have been mailed out on June 17th. So by now everyone should have received their tax assessments, and that will start the process. We actually have a new rule this year. Typically, you only can challenge the exemption until April 1st of each year, but I believe there's a new rule, and we've got our assessor on, Fulton County Assessor Roger Connolly. Thank you for joining us tonight, and Earl Denard, and they're going to share more information and details um, about the process, but also about specifically the new rules that will allow an objection to an evaluation during this process this time around. So thank you all again for joining us. Marvin Arrington Jr., Fulton County Commissioner for District 5. I do want to tell you about some of the other town halls that we're hosting. We try to make sure to be accessible to the people and the community. So we host these town halls around the district in different places, as well as hosting this one virtually. On July 8th, we will be at the Chattahoochee Hills City Hall, hosting a town hall in Chattahoochee Hills. And then on July 10th, we'll be at Camp Truett in College Park for another in-person tax assessment town hall. And so we'll host, uh, and then July 14th, we'll be at Wolf Creek in the city of South Fulton for our tax assessment town hall. So we'll host 3 tax assessment town halls around the district, as well as this virtual one, all to make sure that Fulton County residents know what to expect. Additionally, I want to let you know about our upcoming It Takes a Village back to school drive. We host this again annually every year for the last 11 years. And there's opportunity for us to provide school supplies to school students, but we also host an essay competition. And with this essay competition, we give away 10 $500 scholarships to college students. So if you have a college student that resides in Fulton County or attends school, attends college in Fulton County, please make sure to tell them about our It Takes a Village scholarship and back to school drive. Um, we're going to give out the awards for the essay competition for It Takes a Village on July 25th at the Gladys S. Denard Library. So please make sure to join us again on July 25th at the Gladys Denard Library. And Up next, I'm going to turn it over uh, to our Fulton County Tax Assessor, Roger Conley, and Mr. Earl Denard. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight.
Commissioner, if I may, before you turn it over, let me just,
Okay.
if I could just offer a point. The Camp Truett event has been rescheduled to the 24th, the
Okay, thank you.
24th of July.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that update, Richard. So the College Park Tax Assessment Town Hall will be July 24th. Please join us if you're in College Park or around that area. And again, we'll have one in the city of South Fulton as well as the city of Chattahoochee Hills. Um, and so now we will turn it over to our Fulton County Tax Assessor, Mr. Roger Conley, and Mr. Earl Denard in the Residential Division. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Arrington, for the opportunity to just share some of the good information, some of the great work that the staff at the Board of Assessors does every day. I will ask one of my colleagues, Mr. Whitman, as he's start the process of sharing the screen for a presentation. Also like to thank Mr. Case for organizing and putting everything together. Mr. Denard for his efforts. He will be sharing with you information regarding the assessment process, while Mr. Whitman, one of my colleagues, is also here with us today, and he will be sharing with you information regarding homestead exemptions. My contribution today, we'll start with, is all about the 2025 assessment notices and homestead filings. But at the Board of Assessors, we build on a foundation of value, service, and trust. If you can move to the next screen, please, sir. The Board of Assessors is comprised of 5 board members. They're citizens of Fulton County that is appointed to the Board of Assessors office by the Board of Commissioners. And they're responsible for identifying and appraising all taxable properties in Fulton County. They're also responsible for setting policies and procedures of the office that is to be followed by the appraisal staff. And then they are lastly responsible for appointing the chief appraiser, which is my role for the Board of Assessors office. Next slide, please. We are broken down into 4 divisions. Mr. Whitman, who's here with us today, serves as the Deputy Chief Appraiser for Support Services, which includes GIS, Field Book, and the Homestead divisions. Tara Parker serves as the Deputy Chief Appraiser for Residential. Curtis Broden serves as the Deputy Chief Appraiser for both Commercial and Industrial divisions, while Mr. Pinckney, Dwayne Pinckney, serves as the Deputy Chief Appraiser for Personal Property in our Administrative division. Next slide, please. I will tell you this has been a very challenging year as it relates to legislation. In 2024 legislative season, brought us probably one of the most comprehensive pieces of legislation that impacted the tax assessment world in a while, and that was under House Bill 581. One of the main components of House Bill 581 was introducing a statewide floating homestead exemption. But it also impacted what you guys are familiar with seeing, which being your assessment notice. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a while, in a second. But it also has some impacts as it relates to the appeals process, where you are traditionally, by proxy of filing an appeal, will have the opportunity to have your value remain unless you made some significant improvements. But with the new law, you actually have to achieve a reduction before you will receive that 299C provision, meaning your value will remain the same for that year plus 2 additional years. As a companion bill, House Resolution 1022 was the mechanism that allowed for House Bill 581 to operate. But what made it challenging in the 2025 legislative season, the legislators decided to do a little cleanup that was identified. But what it did was did not allow us much room to make adjustments. The legislation was passed on April 1st of 2025. And so effective retroactively for January 1st of 2025. Next slide, please. If you navigate our website to help guide you through a lot of the changes of the legislation from House Bill 581 in House Bill 92, we have a link on our website that will be a very easy read, a very good guide that will be able to assist you and have better understanding of the process. Next slide, please. So with the help of External Affairs, we were able to develop a video I think will serve as a good guide for you. And so we'll take a brief moment and display the video for you guys.
Well, thank you, Mr. Conley. While we wait for that video to come up, thank you for sharing that information. A lot of good information and updates on new state laws.
FultonAssessor.org. Remember, your assessment notice is not a bill. Tax bills will be issued in the fall. Be sure to review your assessment notice carefully. Is your property information accurate? Are all of your exemptions included? New state laws mean there will be some differences this year. On your assessment notice, in homestead exemptions, and in rules governing exemptions. New floating homestead exemption. Homestead exemptions are a tool to provide property tax relief for qualifying homeowners. State lawmakers added a new floating homestead exemption. Floating homestead exemptions protect property owners if their property values increase rapidly. The amount can change every year to help with increases of property values. The new exemption is in addition to the floating exemption Fulton County has offered for more than 20 years. Property owners will automatically get whichever exemption saves them the most money. If you already have a basic homestead exemption, you don't have to apply separately for a floating exemption. It will be automatically applied. There is also a change in the application period for homestead exemptions. Usually, the deadline to seek a homestead exemption that will apply in the current tax year is April 1st. Under the new law, if you owned your home on January 1st but haven't applied for an exemption, you can do that now during the 45-day assessment appeal period. If you acquired your home after January 1st but haven't yet applied for a homestead exemption, you can apply at any time, but it won't go into effect until next year. Even with many changes in the assessment process, property owners still have the right to appeal. Appeals can be filed for 45 days after the date printed on your notice. One new change is the appeals process. If you appeal, your property value can be frozen for 3 years, but only if your appeal successfully reduces your valuation.
You can appeal if you don't think your fair market value is accurate. Your valuation is very different from similar properties nearby. Your property is tax exempt, such as being owned by a nonprofit. You didn't get the exemptions you should have, or your land should get a discount under the Conservation Use Valuation Assessment or Forest Land Protection Act.
You can file an appeal by mail, online, or in person. Another change property owners will see is that the bottom of your assessment notice will look different. All 18 taxing jurisdictions in Fulton County have certified a rollback rate. That's the tax rate that would generate the same tax revenue as last year if applied to all properties. The rollback rates for Fulton County, your city, and your school system will appear at the bottom of your assessment notice. This rate does not affect your actual assessment or your tax bill. One thing that has not changed is the commitment of the Fulton County Board of Assessors to provide exceptional customer service to property owners. For more information on property assessments, exemptions, and more, visit www.fultonassessor.org.
Well, thank you. That's a great video. Like you say, I think that really breaks the process down and spells it out for everyone. You get your assessment, you got 45 days to appeal the assessment. And as the video showed, it provided the reasons. If you don't think the value in the assessment is proper and the other reasons that were listed there. I'll turn it back over to you guys, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, sir. We just got a handful more slides. Mr. Whitman, you can bring the slides back up. Share your screen. And I will now defer to Mr. Denard.
Good evening. Good evening to Commissioner Arrington and to all the guests that are on the video tonight. I want to go over a little bit about our appraisal timeline, which governs the rate of which we do all of our duties as outlined by the Official Code of Georgia. The official date and the date that evaluation is considered official is January 1st of each year. So that is the date that we determine what the fair market value is of your property as of that date. The return period, which is when you have the opportunity as a taxpayer or as a citizen to return your value, or at least let us know what you feel your property should be worth. And you have from January 1st until April the 1st to declare this amount. And that's for real property, home, land, any kind of improvement to the land, utility buildings, etc. Or if it's personal property, boats, some agricultural equipment, things of that nature, business, personal property. You have until April the 1st, from January 1st until April the 1st, to declare what you feel that the value of that property should be. As was explained in the previous slide, the April 1st is the normal deadline for filing the homestead exemption. But as has been stated also, the time period has been extended to cover the actual time frame of the assessment notice window, which this year is from June 17th until August the 1st. We have to, by law, we are supposed to send out all notices of assessments. They should be mailed no later than July the 1st. And this year we were a little ahead of that time frame by 2 weeks, and we mailed them out again by June the 17th. We're also governed after the August 1st deadline to file your appeal. We have 1 month that we have to have the digest submitted. That means all appeals have to be accounted for. We have to be able to determine if we exceed the acceptable amount of properties that would be under appeal. In a normal year, that has to be 3% of the digest, or 3% of the total number of parcels that we would have. Cannot be in an appeal state. So we attempt to make sure that we are at least under the value, 3%, or the total number of appeals before the digest can be submitted. We know that we have, you can click the next slide, to go over a little bit about the appraisal process as we go through the year doing our work. So the first step, of course, in the appraisal process is to identify the property. So by doing this, we have to process all sales, all land splits, if you deeded off some property to someone else, or if you combined some property that you may have purchased or were awarded through other means. We process all land splits and combinations. That's the first step that we would do. We go through and list all new construction. If there are any permitted activity, if there have been building permits filed with the different jurisdictions, of course, we go through those and make sure that we go out as a staff and make sure that we update our records to reflect the new construction that has been undergoing or in the process of being completed. So we make sure that that is done so that we can have all taxable property that's in the county listed and accounted for. We also go through all of the sales as we receive the sales from the field book division. We make sure that we qualify those sales to make sure that they are accurately coded to show all of the good sales. And when I reference good sales, I mean true arm's length transactions from a willing buyer to a willing seller, to make sure that we can have an indication of what those sales are reflective, that they are reflective of the market activity. And that we can at least be able to feel confident that by keeping up with the sales, we can keep up with what people are willing to pay for the properties in a true arm's length transaction. So after we verify and validate all the sales, we do what we call a revaluation of these assessments. We make sure that all of our neighborhoods are being valued again in accordance with what the market activity is showing. So we will take a look throughout the whole county and make sure that we're comfortable with the level of assessments that are taking place based on market activity for each individual neighborhood. Once we do this, then we're able to confidently assess the property, make sure that we have all the taxable property being listed, and we can go ahead and submit these for assessment notices. And again, those assessment notices this year came out June the 17th, and we feel that those notices reflect the fair market value. In case that you receive your assessment notice and you disagree with our assessment, then that's when the appeal process come in. And so you have the opportunity to file an appeal on your property each year. Of course, you have several reasons that you would file these appeals. One being, as we stated earlier, value. If you feel that the value is not reflective of the fair market of activity in your particular neighborhood, or the condition of your property. There may be some things that you would only the owner would know that we may not be privy to from an outside external view of your property. It could be based on a uniformity appeal, meaning that your property is not being valued the same as similar properties in your neighborhood, or similar properties that are very much in the same condition, same age, same style as your house, but you feel that your property is not being valued the same as others. Or it could be a taxability issue, that you feel that your property should not be taxed, it should be exempt, and so on. Or it could be that you felt that your property was denied an exemption. And so if you had exempt properties such as charitable organizations or church properties or other things that would meet the exempt property digest or barrier threshold, then if that was denied, you have a right to file an appeal on those items. Next slide. As I stated earlier, we mailed out the assessment notices for the 2025.
I'm sorry, Mr. Denard. Before
Yes,
you move on to your next slide, sir, I do see that there's a hand that's raised with a question.
Sure.
It appears to be Dr. Catherine Rowell from the City of South Fulton may have a question.
Okay.
Dr. Rowell?
Good evening, Dr. Rao. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everyone.
No problem. That was an error. I apologize.
Okay, so go right ahead, Mr. Nard. Thank you, Dr. Rao.
Okay, as I stated earlier, we mailed out the 2025 assessment notices on June the 17th. And by now, most of you should have received your notice. You have a 45-day appeal window or period that you can file your appeal within that time, as long as it's postmarked. This year, the deadline will be August the 1st, Friday, August the 1st. It must be postmarked by that date. So if you do have what you feel is a reason for to find out if your property is being valued in accordance with what you feel that the fair market value should be, then of course you have that right to file the appeal, as I stated earlier, based on value, uniformity, taxability, denial of exemption. So if you have any questions about the appeals and the nature of the appeals, we're always available. You can give us a call. If you look at your notice, you should have an appraiser or staff member name listed on the notice as your contact person. And that typically is defining the appraiser who is responsible for your assessment. So if you have a problem with reaching that individual, you can always call the main line, which is 44612-6440, and you should be able to reach someone there, and they will be able to make sure that you get in contact with the, if not the appraiser, then the manager for that particular region. Excuse me. So that's about it. I think my colleague, Deputy Chief Whitman, will take over with the homestead slides. But if you have any questions, I'm available to answer whatever questions you may have.
Well, what I'd like to, before we go to our Deputy Chief Whitman, I'd like to just provide a real world example. So in my previous home, the builder had stopped building, and then they started building some new homes in the back. And this was maybe 15 years later.
Okay.
And so when the assessments came in on my house for a value that I thought was too high, because it was at the value of the new homes that were selling in my subdivision, but the resale homes in my subdivision were not selling for that same price, right? I think the new price was, the market rate may have been $325 for the new homes, but the older homes were maybe selling for $250, right? And so I thought that the value was wrong. I thought that that it was not uniform as the other resale homes in my subdivision, right? And so I objected, and I was able to contest the value. And so that is just a real world example of how that works for everyone that is online with us now. So hopefully that makes sense for you. And then what I was able to do, and this is probably not the best way to do it, but I just went to Zillow and to some of the other real estate sites and was able to show there, hey, here are other resale homes, and here are the newer homes, and here's the difference, right? So they didn't just have to take my word for it. They were also able to see some objective third-party evidence of the value not, or being consistent with my statements.
That's correct, Commissioner Arrington. We know that there, in a situation as you explained, there would have been a difference just based on normal inflation of the typical price point rather, for the newer homes, when you're taking into consideration the difference in the construction costs, the labor costs. 15 years is a good little time, and you would see a lot of change within that time. So typically the appraiser would maintain the effective age, although your home was 15 years older, the actual age wise, the newer homes, of course, would have not accumulated any of the depreciation that your home in that scenario had accumulated. So we would have to account for the differences between the two. And there are tools that we use to make sure that the effective age of your home being 15 years older would be reflected in the assessment. So, but the fact that you were privy enough or savvy enough, I would say, to at least be aware, because Zillow, I mean, that does show a lot of market activity. We typically use a lot more of the FMLS to show what the buyers and sellers are and the market activity is producing. But that is a tool that we will use sometimes also, just as a comparison, pretty much.
And while we're on the point of filing appeals, I would encourage as a taxpayer to educate yourself, empower yourself to understand and learn the process. I mean, it's not intimidating. It's something that you can do on your own. I will also share with you, there are companies that will represent you. There's some that does it better than others. Hopefully you have not received, but we are getting reports that some companies are sending out letters or correspondences that may be very reflective, look very similar to a official county seal. I will tell you, you would not receive a solicitation from our office suggesting that there is a cost. There's not a cost if you choose to file your appeal, only if you go a particular route, which I believe is arbitration. And so just keep your eye out for those that may not necessarily be county officials, but may present themselves to me.
Correct.
Thank you for that information. And I think we were going to Mr. Whitman to talk about exemptions. Good evening, Mr. Whitman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess you've been hosting the slideshow the whole time, so
Yeah, I apologize. I'm trying to manage all of this, but I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this presentation. I am Kevin Whitman. I am the Deputy Chief Appraiser of our Homestead Division and the other divisions the Chief Appraiser mentioned. Hopefully everyone's aware of what a homestead exemption is. If not, if you own and live in a house in Fulton County, you may qualify for a homestead exemption. And that homestead exemption, all of them at some level or to some degree are designed to reduce the assessed value of your property. And so by reducing the assessed value of your property, the effect of that is that it lowers your property tax bill. You can apply for a homestead exemption at any time during the year, but the deadline to qualify for the current year is always April the 1st. Now, as has been mentioned with the new legislation that's come through, that filing period for the current year is actually extended to the 45-day appeal period. And so it's been stated multiple times, if you received your notice dated June 17th, you have from June 17th to August the 1st to file for a homestead exemption and for it to apply to tax year 2025 and your 2025 tax bill. Just remember, it's in order to qualify for that, you had to own and occupy the property January 1 of 2025. And so that is the current year, and that is the base qualification for any homestead exemption to be applied for any applicable tax year.
Mr. Whitman, can you turn your camera on?
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely.
We're
I thought
unable to
my
see you.
screen. I thought I was.
Oh, maybe not while you're sharing your screen. You can't do it.
Yeah. Let me see. There
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's see here. All right. We
want people to know who to ask for when they come down there.
I'm the man. We have a variety of homestead exemptions in Fulton County. As I mentioned, there's a basic exemption. The only qualification for that is to own and occupy the property. That's the only qualification for a basic homestead exemption. We also have additional special exemptions that you may qualify for depending on your age and your income level. We have them at age 62, 65, age 70. Most of those have some type of income qualification, but we do have some, especially at age 65, that are the only requirement is the age variable. So at age 65, you can get a senior exemption. There are also other exemptions for disabled veterans, the veteran's surviving spouse. In addition to that, surviving spouses of a peace officer or a firefighter that is killed in the line of duty. We also have what is referred to as a low income or poverty exemption. And the qualification for that is basically the federal adjusted gross income of all of the residents in that household. So it has to fall under a certain threshold every year. We receive that number from the Department of Revenue each year. And so it depends upon the number of persons that are in the household as to whether or not you would qualify for that. This is really the only exemption where every 2 years you have to reapply. All other exemptions will just continue on year after year unless there's some kind of change in the property itself or you move from the property. What you need to file for a homestead exemption across the board, a valid Georgia driver's license or Georgia identification card, your social security number, and the registration for vehicles owned by and registered by the property owners and or their spouses. And all of that is simply to identify that obviously you are who you say you are and you reside in the property that you say you reside at. If the property is in the name of a trust, we have a trust affidavit on our website at fultonassessor.org that you can fill out and submit with your homestead application. Sometimes we do also ask for the trust documents just to show that the person that is applying for the homestead exemption is actually a beneficiary to the trust. And so again, you have to own it, you have to occupy it. And so that's the reason for that requirement. Special exemptions for those that are seniors or have some income issue or income-based exemption that they're seeking, in addition to the things we already mentioned under the basic homestead. We require your state and federal tax returns and a Social Security award letter if you do not file income tax. And the reason we require state and federal is simply dependent upon the language of each legislation. Some legislation wants state income, some legislation as it relates to a homestead wants federal. And so we ask for both so that we can make sure you're getting the homestead that benefits you the most. That's the most beneficial for you as a taxpayer. As I said, you have to own the property, so your name has to be on the deed in order to apply. And so if the property, for instance, is only in the name of one of the, husband or wife, if it's only in one of them's name, the person whose name is on the deed needs to apply. If it was in both individuals' name, either one of them could apply. But obviously you want to apply with the qualifications that again will give you the greatest exemption. So your age, your income, all of that can come into play whenever you're filing for an exemption. And one other thing I'll mention there is if you go online at fultonassessor.org and you utilize our smart file application to file, it's designed for you to apply for a homestead exemption really without you having knowledge of what you're applying for. In other words, you don't have to know all of the different aspects of every single exemption. You simply provide all of your information and it's user friendly. It directs you in a certain path depending on your answers to certain questions. And so it kind of leads you to the exemption that you best qualify for and that best benefits you. So we do encourage people to use the online portal. It is user friendly and there's a lot of information that's on there now to help you step by step follow through that process for filing for your homestead exemption. And I mentioned this in light of the fact that you can now file for 2025 during the appeal period. If you go into our smart file online application, it gives you the option to file for 2025 or 2026. And so again, if you owned and occupied January 1, 2025, you can apply for 2025. If your ownership is ineffective as far as for property taxation until January 1, 2026, then you simply need to file for 2026. But both of those options are available. As far as our other online services, you can file real property returns January 1 to April 1 on our Smart File application, as well as business personal property, aircraft, and marine returns. Again, the deadline there is April 1. Real and business personal property appeals can be filed using our online application. And any change of a mailing address as it relates to real property, that is, whether it's residential or commercial land and buildings, if you want to change your mailing address for those properties, you can do that online as well. We've got essentially 6 locations as it relates to our homestead division. Our main location is at 235 Peachtree Street. That's where all of our administrative offices are, whether it's homestead, residential, commercial, personal property. All of our staff is located there. And then at the satellite locations, 2 in the north, 2 in the south, and then not only 235 Peachtree Street, but 141 Pryor Street downtown. You can visit any of those locations to file for your homestead exemption or to get information regarding your homestead exemption. And you can see on the screen there the different locations and where they are throughout the county. And I guess that leads us to any questions at this point.
So I see we have a couple of questions, but before we get to those questions, I wanted to thank you for presenting that information. You and Mr. Denard, great job. And with the trust, I know if anyone is transferring their property to a trust, just know that you may have to reapply, or you will have to reapply for your homestead exemption if you change your property out of your name and put it into the name of a trust. All right, and I don't know if this question is better for you, Mr. Whitman, or Mr. Denard or Mr. Conley. The question is, based on the information provided on the tax assessment, are taxpayers able to calculate a tentative amount that is due prior to the tax office applying the rollback?
I'll take that one. I will. Unfortunately, the answer is no. That is part of some of the legislative changes that we talked about, the format of the notice. Traditionally, you will have every taxing jurisdiction that is applicable to your property on that assessment notice, but now they're only allowing for 3 based on the new legislation. That is for the county, any municipality you're in, and then, of course, the school boards that may be associated with your property. So the answer is no, you may be able to calculate it for that particular jurisdiction, taxing authority, but not as a whole.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conley. That leads us to our next question. Did you take into consideration post office problems with delivering mail in a timely manner? We received our assessment June 28th, which does not give 45 days. Our notice states a deadline of August 1st.
So again, unfortunately, we do not have the authority to amend the 45-day appeal period. However, we did take it into consideration. The day prior to the notices on the 16th, we made the values available online on our website. And 2 days after that, we made the notices available online. And so since that date, you did have access was made available to the notices, but unfortunately, we cannot amend that 45-day appeal period.
And that's a state law, right? The 45
Correct.
days is a state law.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you again. All right. I like this. I like both of those previous questions. I like this one as well. Can I appeal if my taxes went down? If they thought the house went the wrong way, can they appeal that decision? I guess the value is yes. I guess
Well, if you don't mind, Chief, I can take that one. So basically, each year, you have the right and really the responsibility to declare your value as you determine it based on your own knowledge of your property. So as of January 1st through April 1st, you have an opportunity to declare what you feel that your property should be valued at. And so at that time, if you do, then of course we would take that into consideration. But once we do our analysis of, all of the neighborhood, the market trends, and so on, we determine the value based on the information that we are able to determine. I mean, to analyze and find. So at that point, to answer your question, of course, you can file the appeal based on value. So that is the law, whether it is higher or lower. But you would need to at least be able to be prepared at the appeal hearing to show why your value should be higher rather than lower. Or, normally most people want their value to be a little lower, we typically see. So, but if you have some information that would support a higher value, then of course we would consider it, because we typically have a saying that no one knows their property better than the individual owner. So there may be some things that we were not able to take a look at and see that may have driven a higher price point. But we have to be uniform, most of all.
One point of clarity, I believe the question was about taxes. The Board of Assessors do not assess taxes. We do establish the value of the assessment. And so
Correct.
I want to be very, very clear that you, as it relates to the assessment notice, you will not see your tax liability reflected on there any longer, at least in this version of the notice. So I want to make sure I do a line between taxes and the assessment.
Correct.
It's a very important point, and to just echo that, that is why the tax commissioner collects the taxes and the Board of Assessors assesses to keep those two different functions separate and apart. And so that just, echoes the answer that our chief appraiser just provided. All right, next question. Since we're not able to calculate a tentative amount, what type of percentage increases should a taxpayer expect once all jurisdictions are applied?
That is interesting question, and of course, Mr. Bernard, Mr. Whitman, if you want to add to it, you definitely can. But each assessment is unique, and so it'll be very, very difficult to try to answer that question, especially without knowing all the factors, neighborhood you may be in. The fact of the matter is, your neighbor may have filed an appeal and been on a value that's protected by 299C, which means their value would not increase or decrease because it has to remain the same by law. And so it'd be very, very difficult not knowing all those factors in order to determine what percentage increase or decrease may be applied to any given property. And so if you want to contact us directly, we can definitely help you with that kind of assessment. We also have our notices from the prior year on our website, so you can do a comparison if you like.
Yeah, because there may be exemptions, more than one exemption. And the problem is there are 18 different taxing jurisdictions in Fulton County, 15 cities, the 2 school districts, as well as the county. And so, and not only does the county have a set of exemptions, but all 15 cities have their own set of exemptions, and the 2 school districts also have their own set of exemptions. All right, so I hope that answers that question. Our next question is, what is real property return? I guess someone must have said that in one of their answers.
So the real property return is basically the declaration of what your property is valued, in your opinion, as of January 1st. So by statute, you have a right and really a responsibility to declare your property at its fair market value. The failure to do so will mean that the previous year's value will become your current year return value. So if you know that you've added enclosed a sunroom, what once may have been a an open patio, but you've enclosed it and created heated and cooled space, then at that point, by law, even if you did not get a permit, you're supposed to let us know that you've increased your amount of living space. And failure to do so then means that you did not return your property at its fair market value. So it's just a way of saying that you will provide the tax assessor's office with your estimate of your fair market value.
And how is that usually done? I mean, how would people know to do that?
So what we would
Other
do
than
then,
attending tonight, other than hearing you say
that's a good way to do it. But so from January 1st through April the 1st is the time frame that you that all citizens of the state of Georgia have the opportunity, and that's in all 159 counties. You have an opportunity and a responsibility to declare your value, your estimate of your fair market value. Again, the failure to do so means that you have agreed or de facto returned it at the previous year's finalized value. So if you did not file a return from January 1st to April the 1st, you're basically saying that you're in agreement with the billed amount, which would be the amount that you paid taxes on in the previous year, that you're fine and that you're saying that that value is still good for the upcoming year.
And for your
we're gonna have to
convenience,
add this. I'm
for
sorry,
your
go right ahead.
for your convenience, you should find a form on our website. If you go under our
Correct.
documents, that'll make it very easy for you, very easy fillable form that you can just provide back to our office.
Correct. Thanks, G.
I mean, I wonder how many of those you all get. That's my first time hearing of that. So I'm sure there are other people on here that have not heard that before. We're gonna have to add that information to our early town hall before the April 1st exemption deadline, and talk about the filing of those returns. Not only because what I heard you say is it is an obligation, which I interpret that as a requirement, right? And so we certainly want to make sure we share that information with everyone.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, don't know if we have any more questions, comments, criticisms. We take it all. We got the experts here. I am thankful to you all for being here because I could not have provided 1/10 of the information that you all provided. I do see we have a hand raised, Miss Aaliyah Jones. Can you type your question in the Q&A, Miss Jones? Don't see the question yet. Maybe she didn't actually have a. What is the website again for the homestead? FultonAssessor.org, and I can no S. I know how we love to add S's on the end of everything. No S. FultonAssessor.org.
Correct.
I typed the answer to that, but I don't know if you can see that or if everyone can see it. For some reason, I'm unable to type anything in the chat box. All right, we do have a couple more questions. Please state again the website we can go to compare assessment of our neighbors. I believe again that's FultonAssessor.org. You can look up any property there in the county. Ms. Jones, can I appeal if my taxes went down? Sorry, someone at the door didn't hear answer. Yes, you can appeal if you believe your value is wrong. whether you believe your value is too high or too low, you can appeal. Most of the times people are appealing because they think the value is too high and they want to pay less in taxes. But I would imagine if someone is about to sell their home, they probably want it to be as high as they want it to be. So everyone is different and in different situations. But yes, ma'am, you can appeal if your taxes went down. I hope that answers your question. What is the follow-up procedure from the assessor's office on the real property? I assume you're saying on the real property return. The question is, what is the follow-up procedure from the assessors? Yes, on the real property return.
So typically, we will have a period after the April 1st deadline in which we really receive all the returns and verify our information based on our analysis of the market data. And we'll make sure that we're comfortable with if there is a need for an increase in either the base building costs, or if the land values have increased. And sometimes we have to determine if there's a difference in, like for instance, in some areas, we'll say like in the Atlanta tax district, the land there is very, very valuable. So the rate that we will value the property overall from a building to land or land to building rate may change, because we know that there's no more land being created and it's becoming more and more valuable. So we have instances where we have to analyze to see if we're assessing the land properly. If we can find some vacant land sales, that's typically how we would be able to determine a fair land cost. And of course, to answer that, we would have to make sure that we're comfortable with our analysis of what the market is showing in terms of any need for increase in the individual neighborhoods, or decrease in some cases, because sometimes the property becomes not as desirable for different reasons, typically economic reasons, outside factors that may determine a need for a decrease in the land values. So based on our market analysis, we typically do that. We can finalize it, we'll say from April to May, and typically early June, as in this year, when we were able to finalize all of our analysis, set the values, and make sure that we were comfortable that we didn't have many outliers where it blew neighborhoods disproportionately higher or lower. And so once we were comfortable with that point, then we were able to recommend to the chief and the board of assessors that these values are values that we could stand on.
Awesome. Thank you. Very thorough answer. All right. Well, certainly appreciate it, gentlemen. This has been very informative. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our tax assessment town hall. I'll just ask again, any more questions, comments, or concerns? If not, then we want to thank everyone for coming out, and hope that everyone will have a blessed day. I will remind you again briefly about our It Takes a Village Back to School drive, school supply drive, and essay competition for college students. Please help us spread the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
sir.
good night.
Have a good night.
And have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Okay.
Car she was riding in.
Up YouTube.
Swerve.